I think, than anybody I can put a name to promote our sport.
The archer who owns all the world records, John Demmer III.
You know, the more difficult a thing is, the more important the mental game becomes.
I didn't eat any supper yet either. How about you guys? Did you guys eat yet?
I didn't eat
Oh,
that.
you know,
I got some crunch berries.
Oh,
yeah.
Grayson Parlow.
It's like me taking 3 or 4 years off your eyes just because I weakened that prescription in the shooting eye.
And don't put everything into my shot that I should, that I get a lot of drop on those heavy arrows. He's dropping all the way down into the 6th. And he said, well, you might want to think about going to a lighter arrow and string walking. And then that's what got that started.
This was such a great episode. Episode 42 with Rich Barker. Barker episodes, part 2. Yes, I'm sitting at the firehouse right now. I ended up recording the podcast here, so we get a brief tour of my fire department. This was so informative and is going to help so many people. I'm excited for you all to hear it. But before you do that, you have a fee to pay, and we talk about it every episode. I'm sorry, but it's a small price to pay. That's just the scanner in the background. It's to share this episode. If this episode helps you, if this is going to help someone else, if you enjoyed it, if you thought it was funny, doesn't matter, whatever. Share the episode. Share the episode. That does more for Barebow than me spouting off sponsors. And to be honest with you, it helps our sponsors more too, because all their information is in the show comments anyway. And you all know who they are, and they're mentioned in writing in the video. So share the episode. That's it. Enjoy this episode. See ya. There's a working structure fire. You'll hear the radio in the background. There's a working structure fire in Pottsville with entrapment. There was reported entrapment on the 2nd floor, but I don't think they've confirmed the entrapment yet. But it was a legitimate fire. And what happens when we're around during the day, they hit a 2nd or a 3rd alarm, and that bumps up other departments. So, like there's all these people come to the call, and then other people get dispatched or put on standby to come and help, and then it just gets like further away from the city, then other companies move in, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And during the day, traditionally volunteer fire departments are light crews. They don't have, everybody's working, it's very few of us that have careers that allow us to respond if necessary, stuff like that.
Okay.
Shuffling trucks around right now, but it is what it is. I'm gonna turn the volume down a little bit, and then we might as well just talk. All right.
Yeah.
I'll be right back. Shut that down. All right, I shut the speaker off, so we can just chat it up. So, are you good to go, Rich?
Yeah.
All right.
I think so.
So this is actually episode 42 of the Barebow Project. For those of you who are watching, thank you for watching. Those of you who are listening, thank you for listening. A little bit of a different setting for me today. I was talking about it a little bit. I am at my firehouse. There's a major call going on in the city, a little bit north of me. And this podcast recording could get interrupted at any given moment because it's a major call with a working structure fire with reported entrapment. So if we get dispatched, this might get interrupted. But I'm hanging out at my firehouse. You can see it's more like a frat house. See our wonderful Christmas tree and all of the pictures on the wall, big screen.
Nice.
Yeah, it's like a frat house more than anything because we're, volunteer fire departments don't have income is different. So some places have halls and some places have bars, and stuff like that. And we don't have that. Believe it or not, we are a 100% dry fire company. And, so we took the approach of making a place where our members can hang out and, play Xbox and PS2, PS3, PS5, whatever, stuff like that to make it more appealing to like the younger generation type deal. So
It looks comfortable.
oh man, this place is great. I love it. I love it. It's nice to be able to come up and do my regular job. Move a little bit closer.
Frank, I think your shirt matches that couch over your left shoulder.
Rich, you would recognize that. Yeah, jerk. Kind of does. I could go sit in there and be like, it's like flannel camouflage or something like that.
Yeah.
So I'm recording from the firehouse today. I hope you guys enjoy it. We are continuing the Barker episodes. This is number 2. And, we kind of got through the start of your Barebow career. I think we got up to the point of basically, okay, you're shooting the classic. And I don't know how far we'll get into this, Rich, but we kind of got to that point of you're getting ready. You're going to shoot the classic for the first time or second time when you won in 18.
That was my third, actually.
That was your third time. Okay. So all right. So let's talk a little bit about year 1, year 2, and then what changes you made from year 1 to year 3 to prepare for it. And if we get to the point where we can talk post classic and how things, went, we will. But how about we go from there?
Okay. Year 1 was 2016. And that was early in my Barebow career. I had just started in the previous fall shooting Barebow with that When and When riser I had. And I recall it being my first Barebow tournament. I think it was at Lancaster Host Resort. It wasn't at the current location.
Yes, correct. Yes, that was a packed place.
Yeah. And my wife was attending that year, and she sat in the bleachers behind. I think they were bleachers behind us. Yep. And
I remember that.
I had the honor of shooting with my very first Lancaster archery tournament, classic tournament, with Calvin Smock.
Oh man,
he was shooting with me on my target butt, and what a fun time that was. We instantly hit it off and had a good time shooting together, and he was very supportive. He was very generous with his support and saying, "Oh, great shot and great end," and all that stuff. And I recall I was shooting aluminum arrows, and I recall I was grouping very well, but the groups were around 4 o'clock at the 8-7 line, somewhere in that area, around 4 o'clock or 5 o'clock, but consistent. I mean, all the arrows packed together, and I just couldn't get them moved into the yellow there. And I remember Calvin making a statement that, wow, he could just move those arrows into the yellow, he'd be killing it. And but we had a good time. And then I think there were around 40 something shooters that year, and I think the top 16 qualified, and I qualified, but I think I shot on a Friday morning. But that Friday night, if I recall correctly, in terms of the day of the week, there was about 2 feet of snow, and they went right from the qualification round to the shoot-ups to the top 4 archers and skipped the elimination round. So my first year shooting the tournament, I didn't get a chance to shoot in the elimination round. I was ready to get out there on the road with my truck and try to get there, but my wife thought I was crazy. But nevertheless, it was canceled. I think the complex canceled the Saturday shooting, so no one shot on Saturday. Everybody shot on Sunday, and it was the top four. And then in 2017, I made the cut again. I think there were a few more archers that year, and I recall I think my first match was against Rick Stonebreaker, and I won that one. And then the second, this is the elimination round I'm talking about. The second one was against, I believe, if I recall correctly, it was Ben Rogers, and I got eliminated. So that was 2017. And then in 2018, the year I won, I qualified 14th and shot my way up to the 4th position to go out on the stage. So the elimination round was my first tournament was against my first match, or whatever you want to call it, was against Gentian Zotto from Canada. Very nice man, and he's from Canada. Yeah, I said that. And it's just a pleasure to meet people and compete with them, and he's such a nice man. And so we were pretty close, in terms of scores. But I got through it, and he congratulated me and told me he was rooting for me from that point forward, and for that day. And then my next match was against John Dillinger, and our scores, Gentian and I, we were low to mid 20s on the ends, not great, but sometimes he just seemed to shoot with, close to the same. Now, oftentimes as matches go, your scores are real close. And so I knew against Dillinger, I was going to have to raise my game a little bit. And I did. I succeeded in doing so. And now I'm shooting, averaging 9 points an arrow, 27s, 28s. And my very first inning against John Dillinger, I won that first end, and I remember his reaction was, "Oh, okay, well, you got the first one," and I'm sure he had a lot of confidence in himself with his ability. And then I think I won, 3 out of 4 or something like that. And it really, the feeling I got from that experience was that John was completely surprised and didn't see that coming. And I guess that was sort of the theme of the day, was I took a lot of people by surprise that day. And after getting by John, it was a tight match. I mean, when I beat him on any particular end, it was like 28 to 27 or 29 to 28, or he might have won one, 28 to 27 or 27 to 26. I don't know what, but I don't remember exactly, but it was really close, and it was pretty high level. And then we got through that, and my next one up was Ken Reynes. And I didn't know very much about Gentian Zotto's game nor Ken Reynes's game, but I knew that John Dillinger was going to be tough competition. So he was kind of on my radar. I realized, going into it, that I was going to meet up with him if I got through the first round. And so after I got past John Dillinger, I went up against Ken Reynes. And I don't think either one of us shot up to our capabilities. My scores were a little bit lower against him, and he was, we were neck and neck, but I got past him also. But we were both nervous. I remember that. And he's tall. He's a tall guy, and he's left-handed. So it's 2 tall guys face to face competing against each other. And it was relatively close. Not as high scoring as it was John Dillinger and I, but it was still relatively close. And I got through that. And next thing you know, I had a 2-hour layoff to wait for the stage.
That's awesome.
So I had lunch.
Well, smart
Yeah.
move. Absolutely smart move. You get lunch, get some water, use the bathroom, that type of stuff.
Yeah, I had lunch with a friend of mine, Brian Farrell.
Brian, yeah.
Brian Barebow Archer shoots over at Stowe, and great guy. And we sat in the restaurant there, and I had some pasta to get the carbs going.
Yep, absolutely.
Try to help boost the adrenaline a little bit, and had nice lunch together. He treated, which I still owe him for. He won't let me pay him back. That's why he is.
That's Brian.
And then I found a nice comfy chair in the lobby, and I just pulled my hat over my eyes and slouched down and sort of halfway napped and
Yep.
waited for the warm-ups to begin.
So before we get into those matches, can we? Because I don't want to. Everybody knows the outcome, but can you just talk to the difference in what or changes you may have made in preparation from 16 to 17 to 18? Like things that you may have done differently, things that you changed, things that you did in preparation for that 2018 Classic that maybe you didn't do years prior, stuff like that.
Equipment wise, I over time made some upgrades. Shot a pretty light bow for indoors. I think it was around 36 pounds on my fingertips. I upgraded the grip to a Jaeger grip on the riser. I switched, this is over between 2016 and 2018, switched from aluminum arrows to carbon arrows, sticking with a fat diameter. So I started with X7s, then I switched from X7s to X23s, and then from X23s to Fat Boys. And worked a little bit with, I was learning. I really didn't start learning Barebow until the fall of 2015. And so one of the things that I did was maybe switch my hook a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
And one thing that Sean Snyder over at Lancaster Archery showed me that he knew of some archers doing was when you hit your crawl, I would turn my fingers counterclockwise. And what that does for me is it lines up my fingertips with the string.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So if you look at the crease in the leather on the tab, at the top where the leather meets the aluminum plate, the crease is right against the plate. But at the bottom, it's about 1.5 inches, roughly, away from the plate. I'm going at a diagonal across the leather. And so I was doing that. And another thing that Sean showed me was the feather, the cock feather on the arrow, lining that up so that it's horizontal, pointing at 9 o'clock. I had that touching my nose as a third anchor point. So these are like small changes that occurred over that time frame. And then one of the big changes was switching from aluminum arrows to carbon arrows and shooting the Fat Boys. Yeah. And other than that, you know,
How about like training or preparation? Did you change any volume? Did you just continue shooting regularly? Did you add anything in or anything like that?
yeah, I increased the volume considerably in the winter of 2017 to 2018.
Okay.
I was shooting a lot of there's a league in Pennsylvania called the Penn Dutch League,
Yeah.
and which is a number of different clubs, mostly Lancaster County and Dauphin County out near Harrisburg, the state capital. And they have these invitationals, indoor invitationals. And I was going around shooting those clubs with a friend of mine, Scott Rissinger. Do you know Scott?
I absolutely do. Very well.
Over
Scott,
at,
Scott is a level 4 previous international coach,
yeah,
Olympic recurve. And for those of you who, Scott is a I think he's an international competitor too, if I remember correctly. But he's been in the men's recurve shoot ups and brackets multiple times.
yeah, he's a high level coach and Olympic recurve shooter. And he helped me out a lot during those years from 2016 to 2017, getting me off the ground, shooting those invitationals together in the Penn Dutch League. And he helped a lot with release and tuning and things like that. So that was definitely clutch in my development. And then in terms of my practice routine, I started incorporating things like blank bailing and draw holds and that sort of stuff.
Okay.
Being a little bit more technical with my training. But another thing that was happening at the time was I was working, and I was working in Plymouth Meeting, Pennsylvania, which from my home in the Coatesville area, it's about a 45 to 50-minute drive directly there if I go, at the early stages of the morning rush hour.
Yeah.
And I was practicing at a club I belonged to in Ephrata, the Ephrata Bowman, which is out in Lancaster County. And that's 35, 40 minutes in the opposite direction. So we're talking about my training. The only time of the day that I could count on being available to shoot and train was in the morning, because of the nature of my work. I could work until all hours of the evening. It wasn't a 5 o'clock stop. It was oftentimes working 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 o'clock at night, depending on what our workload was like and that sort of thing. So I had an arrangement with my company in Plymouth Meeting, Pennsylvania, that allowed me to practice in the morning and show up for work at 9 o'clock in the morning.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, I mean, it was great. They were very cooperative, very generous with me in that regard. And oftentimes there were morning meetings at 9 o'clock, and I would walk in just in time for that morning meeting. So I was driving 40 minutes west from my house in the Coatesville area to Ephrata, and I would get up at like 4 o'clock in the morning and work out. And mainly, some cardiovascular exercise bike, and some stretching to keep my muscles limber, and set up some push-ups. And then I would get a shower, get dressed in my business casual, and drive out to Ephrata. And I'd get there like clockwork at 20 after 6 in the morning and sign in and practice until 10 of 8, an hour and a half. And leave at 10 minutes of 8 and drive all the way from Ephrata to Plymouth Meeting, about an hour and 10 minutes, get there at 9 o'clock and start my workday, and then repeat the next day.
So were you doing this 5 days a week?
I was doing this 5 or 6 days a week. Sometimes I'd go in on Saturday, sometimes I wouldn't. But I always took Sundays off. But
so I just want to interject to those that are listening and watching this. That's when we talk about, people are always, you and I have talked about it, like with the coaching side, people, they want to get better, but Then there's people who are like, man, I really want to compete. I want to compete at a high level. I want to be a champion, stuff like that. Listen, everyone, that right there is the dedication that it takes. Like when you want something, you will go to no end to accomplish it. I don't think most people don't understand the commitment that it takes to do that. And how long did you do that for, roughly?
I did that from the moment it started getting a little too cool to shoot outside. Well, actually, I needed to shoot inside for the lighting also. I mean, I can, what I'm referring to is I can practice in my backyard.
Right.
But once the fall hits, once the hours get shorter, temperature drops, you kind of transition to inside anyway.
Yeah.
So I would say sometime in probably early October through spring, I was doing that every day.
So you're doing that prior to the classic. So October, November, December,
Yeah.
February. So there's 4 months of indoor every day, just prior to the classic. Like I said, and you're doing a combination of drills and stuff like that, which is awesome to hear. So that's a big change. That was a significant change from previous years, or no?
Yes, that was a significant change. I was really driven at that point. In 2017, I think I mentioned previously that I was trying to make the 2018 U.S. archery team.
Yes, that's right.
And so that, things like that can propel you a little bit to work harder. And that also is, you have to try to get the enjoyment out of it,
Yeah.
So, my recommendation, like you're just saying, Frank, is to shoot, practice, and persevere. Sometimes you won't want to go practice. And if you push yourself a little bit and go practice, you'll be glad you did. Persevere. And another thing is, every practice day isn't the same. Some days you just feel so inspired, you're shooting well, and you can't wait to get back to the line after you pull your arrows and do it all over again. And other days you're just not having a good day. And sometimes it's better, especially if you have distractions that are distracting you from your focus. So there might be something happening at the office that day that I really need to concentrate on, and I'm concerned about getting started with or getting back to, what have you. And so there may be days like that where I just can't get that off my mind, and I have to come to realize that as I'm practicing, that there's just something distracting me. It's not going well today, and I cut practice short, and get on the road and get to the office.
Yeah, and that carries over to us all year long in the regular tournaments, and especially the classic. Dick Tone talks about settling your affairs, like making sure, like if you have things going on, that you can sort of wipe off your plate.
Exactly.
That it's a huge benefit to kind of let your brain. I call it organizing your brain. You can organize your brain so you don't have to worry about that stuff. But
yes,
it can happen during training too.
Absolutely. I mean, that's so on point. I mean, getting your affairs in order is a huge thing, because everything's taken care of. It gives you freedom to focus on what you enjoy doing, and not have whatever else is going on in your life distracting you. And that's what I would say to students, young people that are trying to bring their game up. Get your schooling right, get your grades in order, and
right,
and everything else. So that's what I did. I mean, I was really driven then to work hard at it, and it worked out for me.
Yes, it did. You so do you want to finish how your shoot ups? I mean, so the other day I shot against you. I texted you. I was like, I beat you, but then you got me in the last. I'll shoot the actual shoot ups on my big screen at my range. It's like a 10-foot wide by 14-foot high screen that's above our bales, and the projectors on it, and I'll go through the shoot ups off the clock. And I texted you, I was like, and then I got to the end and you beat me anyway. I ran out of steam. I mean, it's not the same as the real deal, but it's just, it's fun and it's good practice. But yeah, so you really kind of, I think you only had one really close match. But why don't you run through those? Why don't you run through your matches and just talk about, like, maybe how you organized your thoughts going through those matches?
Well, it starts out backstage in the practice area, and they try to duplicate the lighting on stage in the practice area.
Yeah.
And so I was fourth, the first one out, and so I was the first one up to practice. And there's a couple of gentlemen from Lancaster Archery there that were keeping an eye on things, and I was not shooting very well, seemingly surrounding the yellow, just if you hit anywhere on the clock, 12, 6, 3, or 9 in the red, but I was not hitting the yellow very well. I was thinking, oh boy, I got to get out there and I got to make sure that I somehow show that I somehow deserve to be there, And then Bobby Worthington steps up and he starts practicing, and he's knocking the crap out of the center of the target, and I want to keep going, but they said my time was up and I had to stop, and Bobby Worthington's still shooting, and I'm nervous, I'm nervous as all get out, but I knew it was close to time to walk out, and I wanted to peek around the curtain, and the guys from Lancaster Archery were saying, well, aren't you going to grab your bow? Because I was walking out just to peek, and they were laughing about it. And I said, well, all right, yeah, I'll go grab my bow. And I grabbed my bow and walked out there. And, Bobby Worthington came out, and he chose the left side and I took the right side. And he chose to let me shoot first, which worked for me because I just wanted to get it over with. And my thoughts were, just show the folks that are watching this that I deserve to be there. Just put on some kind of a show that puts the arrows somewhere in the vicinity of the center of the target. And I don't know how I got through Bobby. Somehow I did. I know I had on the second end, I think something like that. I shot a 4.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
Just finally had one of those Barebow moments there where it just got away from me, and I think somewhere along the line, shooting against Bobby, I had my first 11.
Yep.
And at some point, you feel like you're beginning to feel it a little bit. You feel like you're beginning to figure it out, that this is how I need to hold, because I wasn't about to try to adjust my plunger or anything like that, or worry about my string blur. I was just trying to look at a sight picture that worked for me. And Bobby didn't shoot his best against me. I've seen Bobby shoot lights out, and he wasn't exactly himself. And so I was just very fortunate to get through him, to survive that. But once I did, then I started to get into the kind of a groove, if you will, that I could find while I'm practicing. All those early mornings at the Ephrata Bowman Archery Club, practicing started to work for me, and I could just get into a full extension, that transfer to hold, getting into that full extension and just bringing it up, and it comes right up where it's supposed to be. And for me, it was a little bit off center. It wasn't. I liked a 6 o'clock hold with the figure 8 or the snowman or whatever you want to call it, where you have the point of the arrow just underneath the yellow, the yellow dot sitting right on top of your arrow point. that's the side picture I like. And I couldn't use that there. I had to be a little bit over at 5 o'clock or so, a little bit to the right. And, but I figured it out. And then once I shot against Dwayne Martin, who was next up, you know, I had to raise my game to stay alive. You know, not that I didn't have to have a high level, you know, shot for Bobby. It's just that neither one of us, you know, we were both going through the first and, you know, the jitters of being on the stage, being under the lights in front of the camera and getting used to the lighting. And somehow I came out ahead, but against Dwayne, I knew I had to just keep getting better as I went along, or else I wasn't going to stay out there any longer. And all I was really trying to do was stay within my own game, not worry about who I was shooting against, just try to keep improving my game and shoot to the level that I'd seen myself shoot at in practice. And so it's more of a, you know, you're fighting against yourself. It's the mental game that you're playing. And so things improved against Dwayne Martin, and I survived him. And he still tells me to this day that, you know, next time around, it's not going to work out that way for me, which I appreciate. I like that competitive spirit. And so, you know, the rest is kind of history. Next up was the man, as they say, Mr. Demmer.
Mhm.
And it was a new show at that point with him coming out on stage and his, you know, Bobby, you know, all three of those guys, they're unique in their own way. You know, Bobby is very much looks traditional with his leather quiver and his hat and his plaid shirt. You know, he just he fits the part. And Dwayne comes out wearing his USA Archery jersey.
Yeah.
And you know, he looks formidable with the way he's looking. And then John comes out and he's got the Superman shirt and the board shorts and the fancy shoes. And so it was, for me, it was just like, I'm gonna enjoy this moment, you know. At this point, I can't believe I've made it that far.
Yeah.
And I'm just enjoying the moment and have a fierce competitor to shoot against. And somehow I just started to feel it more and more. You know, it just kept progressing. It didn't go backwards at all. It just kept progressing.
That match, you caught fire. Like you were shooting well. I'm going to take a quick break here, and I'm going to tell you guys a couple of things. One, the link tree on our Instagram and Facebook and everywhere has access to our online store, has access to all of the coaching opportunities, private lessons, stuff like that. The link for the advanced Barebow seminar coming up in January with me and Demmer. Everything that you need to know about the Barebow project is in our link tree. So you should go check that out. If you're looking for coaching, if you're looking for help, a private lessons, the forum eval, anything, go check that out. Link tree will be in the comments for the show. And as always, make sure you look at our voicemail link and call in, leave a question. You know, talk to us about what's going on, and we'll try to produce a show around what you guys need and want to talk about in the voicemail link, the call-in link. So that's in the link tree also. But at any rate, thanks for watching thus far, and enjoy the rest of this episode. Hold on a second, Rich. We moved to a new location. I'm actually in the this is the office where all the magic happens. Not really. This is the office where all the reporting's done.
25 and 65.
You can even
145.
I'll turn that down. See our history on the wall there behind me and stuff like that. Let me turn the radio down here. So we were talking about you hitting that stride, coming up against Mr. Demmer. And I think the other thing to mention is, do you at this point, so do you feel like having that opportunity to come out there first actually helped you?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I was very fortunate to have, like I said, I was fortunate to get past Bobby Worthington. And, the score was nothing to get too excited about. And so, yeah, I mean, that match against Bobby helped me get everything in alignment in terms of, that sight picture. And it started to improve with the match against Dwayne Martin. I shot, I think 6 points better than I did the match against Bobby Worthington. And, put a few more 10s up there, maybe an 11 or two. And I just started to, like I said, that sight picture I needed to have to put the arrow in the middle of the target. I was acquiring that as I went along. So being out there for those matches ahead of John definitely helped. And I would not have wanted to switch places, to be honest with you, with John, to come out cold, maybe not cold, but come out and have to be on the money right from the very get-go.
Yeah.
I had an opportunity to improve my shooting as I went along, and John had to come out and fire away right from the beginning. So there is a difference there, and I acknowledge that. So yeah, by the time John came out, I was feeling pretty good about my shot, and I felt like if I did everything right, it was going in the middle of the target, and it was just a matter of, just staying mentally focused, and I was able to do that somehow. I was able to just stay mentally focused and not concern myself. To be honest with you, I wasn't keeping score even. I was looking at arrow placement, and that was it. Matter of fact, this is going to sound either funny or it might sound typical of me, but that big screen above the targets,
Yeah.
I never saw it.
Yeah.
I didn't know it was there.
Yeah.
And it took me an end to look down and realize that there was a flat screen at my feet that I could see my arrow placement with. And another funny thing is, I didn't realize it at the time, but I had cataracts in both of my eyes.
Oh boy.
Yeah. And so I could see the target well enough to shoot, obviously. But I found out later when I was looking for people in the, not in the audience, but actually before the elimination round, when I was shooting the qualification round on Friday,
Yeah.
I shot the morning round, and the afternoon people had come in, and I was looking for people that day, and I couldn't find them, and I couldn't make out faces. And that's when I realized that I needed to go see my optometrist again and see what's going on with my prescription. And that's when I found out I had cataracts. But anyway, getting back to the environment, I did not keep score. That helped to not have to keep score. And all I did was look down at the flat screen at my feet to check my arrow placement and understand how I was tending, am I tending to shoot left? Am I tending to shoot lower? What have you, and make adjustments accordingly with my sight picture.
I don't think that people also realize the value in what you just said, not worrying about the score. completely ignoring it, almost ignoring it. I mean, other than paying attention, oh yeah, I won the match. I won that match, or I'm, well, in that situation, it's not set points. So it's cumulative score. So even like you really, it's actually that makes it a little bit harder, I guess, because you have to ignore the fact that whether you're ahead or behind and just shoot your arrows. It's a little bit easier in a match set because, like, say you shoot a bad end, that person's winning 2-0 in a match system, and then you kind of get a reset. You get to go back to, yeah, they're winning by 2, but I can win this one.
Yeah.
And it's down to just it's just those 3 arrows, whereas it's a classic with the shoot up, it's cumulative score. And, if you have like one bad end, that could almost be the whole thing. Now, Rob coined the phrase Barebow close, but, you get too wild and crazy stuff can happen, so, but anyway, all right. So yeah, you were just kind of ignoring what was happening. You got used to being up there. You hit a groove where you knew exactly what you needed to do to drop that arrow in the middle. And that's all that you were thinking about at that point in time. So
Exactly.
That in and of itself in not so many terms, like that's exactly what I teach in the seminars and stuff. And try to kind of frame the shot process and the mental approach so that you're capable of doing that. In your instance, it was like 3 years in the making, right? It's a 3-year journey at that point.
Yeah.
To develop that ability to ignore the bad stuff, pay only attention to the stuff that you need, and shoot your shot.
Yeah. There's a commercial on television. This actually just came to mind for the first time. But there's a commercial on television. I think it's maybe a call center to call to help people who have a drug habit or something get over their habit, if I recall correctly. But there's a commercial where there's a young man crossing a street in a city, and he encounters himself and ends up wrestling himself and comes out the victor and continues crossing the street. And it's a commercial to help people get over whatever their addiction is. And this sounds like an unusual analogy, but basically when you're practicing and you're trying to improve your craft and you're trying to improve your game, you're wrestling with yourself. It's a mental game that you have to learn to not be negative, to be positive, to not accuse yourself of a bad shot, but allow yourself to have something to improve upon, and to have an okay shot. So if you read the mental approach to archery, like with Winning in Mind by Basson, and I think USA Archery even recommends a golfing book. Golf is not a game of perfect, but so I read all those books, and I knew that I needed to coach myself and stay positive. And there were days when I practiced, and I would start kicking myself for not doing what I knew I needed to do to execute a good shot, and then I would have to figure out how to work through that without being negative about it. And so it's a process, and you really have to be driven. You have to want it, and you really need to shoot a lot. I would highly recommend making practice a frequent occurrence. And so for me, I even asked someone one time, Brian Brady over at the Lancaster Archery Academy, if he practices every day. This is while I was learning, and he said, no, he takes a day off. He thinks it's important to take a day off. And I read Jay Kaminsky's book, and he said he takes Mondays off, I think, from his routine because it's normally a travel day. So so I was willing and ready to practice every day if that's what it took, but I didn't need to. I needed to practice. I needed to take a rest every so often, you know. So, but I was driven. I just wanted it. I just wanted it. So I wanted to improve my game, and I wanted to go out there and compete. So it was up at 4 o'clock in the morning, working out, getting a shower, getting into my business casual, driving 40 minutes in the opposite direction, 35, 40 minutes in the opposite direction, practicing for an hour and a half, getting on the turnpike, driving all the way from Ephrata to Plymouth meeting on the turnpike, an hour and 10 minutes, and walking into the office and putting a 10, 12-hour day at the office and coming back the next day and repeating it all over again, just to bring my game up to a higher level, you know. And so 2018 was a good year for me. I won the Classic, won the gold in the Masters class, Barebow division, indoor nationals, a bronze in the field nationals, and a gold again in the target nationals in the master class. And it all, you know, that dedication to practicing continued beyond the indoor season when it switched to field, which that year was, you know, in early June. As soon as it started warming up a little bit, I was switching my gear out to a field setup and practicing field in the backyard, going to any club that had a field tournament that I could find. And then that continued right into outdoor target. I was, you know, I'm very blessed to have a range in my backyard. I can shoot out to 50 meters, or actually you can shoot out to 70 meters in my backyard. So, you know, I just kept right on going that year. And it wasn't until, you know, sometime in 2019 that I started to physically pay for it with some shoulder issues, you know.
Yeah, well, it's a mindset, you know, up until that point, of course, but
It is a mindset.
it's a mindset, you know. You have to have the mindset that you are prepared to do anything and everything, and that you are there to win. Like and I wanted to mention this, and I left the thoughts keep going. I'm going to go back to about taking a day off. I started coaching Spanky Brooks, and we're working together to try to change his approach. He's recovering from a shoulder surgery, and he was shooting 100 to 200 arrows a day, 5-6 days a week. And I said, Spanky, I said, that's too much. You know, and maybe in some people it's not, but I said, you know, and not so many words, it was like, you're not a spring chicken anymore. 1, 2, recovery and rest are as important as the volume. So you have to be able to shoot at your peak when it comes to a tournament, and your peak isn't driven by the volume of arrows. It's driven by the health of your body and your brain, because and giving your brain that rest, even if it's, you know, if you're shooting really, really, really well, and deep down inside, you want to keep shooting, but you are forcing yourself to take a day or two off, say it's just the last week or something, you're now going into that tournament at the peak of your game, shooting really well. And more importantly, you're motivated because you cannot wait to pull back your bow and shoot again. Having that mental drive going into a tournament is as important as the volume of arrows that you shot 2, 3, 4, 5 weeks prior. And, you know, sometimes it works in where you can just shoot 300 arrows the day before and you're fine. But what, in my opinion, what happens when we do that, if we're not truly prepared and we shoot all of those extra arrows, you're going to run out of steam and composure sooner or later when it matters most. That's what I find. That's what I think. That's from my experience and from watching, you know, how people prepare and talking to people and coaching and stuff like that. Like that's what I see most often, I should say. Not everybody. And I also want to go back and talk about when you were explaining about like shooting alone at Ephrata and standing up there and how you sort of like, right now I'm looking at the blur of your Zoom screen. You have the blurred background, right? that is a perfect, what's the word, metaphor, I guess it would be, but a visual of what you need to do when you're standing in eliminations, brackets, or up on the platform at the Classic. That blur represents everything outside of what's actually happening between you standing at the shooting line on that platform and the target downrange.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? You know, and the way I describe it to, like, when I do the clinics or the seminars is that, you know, and it's actually it's something that I came up with in high school when I did a paper on shooting free throws during a varsity basketball game, that I would put myself in a big, huge warehouse, ironically similar to the way the shoot ups are at the Classic, a big, huge warehouse where it's pitch black everywhere except for the shooting line and the target. That's where I want to shoot my arrows all of the time. Qualifications, practice, shoot ups. That's where I want my mindset to be. So I am focused only on that one thing, which means you need to become proficient at ignoring the other stuff. And I think that's where people, you know, they get so caught up on wanting to shoot good, but not doing the things that it requires us to shoot good.
Yeah, I think that's an excellent point. You have to really separate yourself from your environment to shoot at your highest level.
Yep.
And that's hard to do. You know, we're all human, and we tend to be affected in different ways and on different occasions. And then there's another aspect to that blur that you're talking about, that focus of separating yourself from your surroundings. It's also up here, that separating your mental focus from any mental distractions that you have, creating that blur in your mind, so that, I mean, the best practice sessions I have is when I can feel completely relaxed about my opportunity to shoot arrows,
yeah,
and forget about everything else that's going on in my life. If I have that, and it doesn't happen very often, you know, because we always have something going on that's important. But when you feel like, you know, you've set aside some time to go practice, and you can concentrate on nothing else but shooting arrows and enjoying it and practicing and improving your game, that's when you tend to have your best practice sessions. And I guess it also helps to, on the days when you're struggling with your focus, to be able to get over that hump as well, and realize, like, there have been times when I think about a particular part of my execution, instead of what my final thought should be as I'm releasing the arrow. It's on a previous part of my execution. You know, everybody's different, and that's happened to me with my mental approach. But I recall in a recent practice session where I'm releasing the arrow, and I didn't like my release very much. I came away from my face a little bit. And so I'm coaching myself silently, talking to myself and saying, better release, next arrow, better release. And when I'm at my highest level, all I'm really doing is focusing my eyes on the target, not even on the arrow, but focusing my eyes on the target, and everything is being executed well. And the bow and the arrow come up right where it should be, and everything goes well, and you can just visualize the arrow leaving your bow and in a nice shallow arc into the center of the target. And on one occasion, not too long ago, I didn't like the release, and my last thought as I was releasing the string was that release. So my mind was back here instead of on the target, and the second shot was not good. And then I realized what I had done. I had taken my mind up where it should be as I'm releasing that arrow and putting it somewhere else. And I said to myself, all right, when you are about to release that arrow, think 10 ring, 10 ring. Think that when you're about to release the arrow. And I forgot about all the other physical parts of my execution, you know, the push towards the target, the release, staying in nice and tight and close to your face. the follow through on both ends. I forgot about all that stuff, the stance, the head,
Yeah.
all in my subconscious. My only thought as I'm releasing an arrow was on the 10 ring, and darn if that third arrow did go right in the middle of the target. And it was just a lesson, a self-taught lesson, that the mental part of the game, that blur that we were alluding to,
Sure.
there's got to be there mentally as well. You've got to just figure out where you need to be mentally to execute your shot and be in the right place at the right time with your focus,
Yeah. Oh, that's great. That's good stuff, man. I mean, that's just so what's that?
I said, I hope it's good stuff.
Oh, that's great stuff. I mean, you're focusing on that finished position, meanwhile concentrating on the middle of the target.
Mm-hmm.
I say it all the time. People get so caught up in aiming that they think that they're looking at the target, and they're looking at the target, but their peripheral, they're still concentrating on the tip of the arrow instead of concentrating less on the aim, hold the position, and focus on finishing the shot, and not, and I think it depends on what your mental, and we'll call it a mantra for lack of a better word, because sometimes, mantras are always referred to as verbal, but I'm like, it's like a physical mantra. Where do I want my finished position to be? How do I get there? And then more importantly, how do you train it? And that's a different episode and a different topic, but you have to know what that finished position is and repeat that position every time. If you're focused on the tip of the arrow, you're not going to be able to do that, because you're going to get stuck, or you're going to move it to the middle, and as you move the tip of the arrow to the middle, you're going to keep moving through that as you're letting go, and you're just timing the release with where the aim gets somewhere close to the middle. And I'm not saying you can't shoot good shots that way. I know people, I've shot good shots. I've shot 540s with little mini drive-bys, but you really got to work hard, and you really got to concentrate. It's not easy to do. But it's hard to be super consistent that way too. But go ahead.
When you put the work into it,
yeah,
those drive-bys end up in the yellow, right?
Right.
You realize that when you release the shot, that it wasn't your best shot in the world, but those, if you put the effort into it and practice, and enjoy it, those drive-by, it happens to all of us. You just don't execute every shot perfectly, but the more you put into it, the more you get out of it, and the more arrows go into, if not in the 10 ring, close to it, because you didn't execute your shot perfectly, but it's still at a higher level than it would have been if you weren't putting some effort into it,
Sure.
Yeah.
So you won a 2018 Classic. Denver was your last match, right?
Denver was the last match, yeah. And it was an uncomfortable environment to have the cameras and lights and all that, and the stage and the audience. But after a while, after you've been there for a little bit,
they kind of go away.
Having the opportunity to come in and face Bobby Worthington and face Dwayne Martin before I have to face John Denmer allowed me to, I wouldn't say I was completely relaxed. I was still nervous, but my confidence level was going up and up and up, and I was being able to visualize the arrow going in the center, same as it did at Ephrata in my practice sessions. I could visualize that happening at the stage and at the Classic. I shot quite a bit at Lancaster Archery in those days. They have they have leagues all year long, and I shot an indoor league there and had a lot of fun doing that. And so I saw Rob Kaufhold pretty often in those days. And so it was, kind of comforting to have him and John Wirt, running the show there.
Absolutely.
A couple of friends.
You weren't working at Lancaster at that point, were you?
No, I wasn't at that point. I did later in the year. I think it was September, October timeframe that I expressed interest in coaching. at their academy, and found out the hard way how hard they work there. My goodness, they if anyone asked me if it's a good place to get started, I would, without hesitation, say absolutely. Heather File and Brian Brady and others there, they work very hard, and they do a lot of coaching, a lot of teaching, classes of all levels. And I mean, they're on their feet for long days on the, that concrete floor. And at my age and the condition of my knees, having played sports all my life, the knees weren't in good enough condition to hold up under that rigor. And so I had to cut it off after about 6 weeks of coaching there. And I enjoyed it quite a bit, but I just realized that physically it was wearing me down too much.
Sure. Yeah.
But it was a great experience.
Yeah, absolutely. Rob's a good guy. Heather and Brian are, yeah, when I first started coaching back in, I think it was 2014, 15, on a serious level, you know, Brian and Heather were sort of my go-tos to reach out to. Them and Larry Wise. They, you know, Larry's the one that ended up teaching me as my level 3. And then, but, you know, when it came to Olympic recurve, Brian was sort of my go-to, Heather too, a little bit, mostly Brian though. And then Brian and I ended up becoming competitors, and then, you know, friends through that journey and stuff. And yeah, they're absolutely amazing people, amazing facility.
Mm-hmm.
You literally have access to anything and everything you could possibly need. We all go there. You know, and obviously look at Heather's, you know, more so on the Olympic recurve side of things than the Barebow, but like look at her success with Casey and some of the youth shooters that come through there. You know, Samantha Ensign, Scott Rissinger works with oh my goodness, Jeff
Alyssa Arts.
Yes, Alyssa Arts.
Yeah.
You know, but she also shoots at Lancaster as well. So, you know, there's just absolute talent being built and generated out of that program for compound and Olympic recurve, without a doubt.
And they have, you know, the league is fun there. They only shoot a 300. I wish it was a 600, but you know, under the time constraints that they have, I can understand.
Yeah. And
I had a lot of fun shooting their league there. Just lots of laughing, and I remember I was shooting when I was still shooting those X7 aluminum arrows. They have a beam right above the targets, but it's carpeted. It's right above the targets, and I let one get away from me one time, and with one of those X7 aluminum arrows, and it hit that beam, and it didn't stick in far enough to go straight in. It just stuck and then flopped down. But now the arrow is hanging over my target. And I'm having so much fun laughing and carrying on with my friends. And I said, well, watch this. I bet I hit my arrow on my next shot. And sure enough, I shot my arrow and put a dent in the arrow and everything. And we were all laughing. We had so many good times shooting the league there. I brought an English longbow there once to show off, and Rob saw it and said, "Is that a Bickerstaff?" And I said, "Yeah, it is." I don't know how he recognized it from afar, but he did somehow. And he shot it, you know, I said, "You want to give it a try?" And he shot it, and we just had so much fun shooting there. And so, you know, getting out there on the stage at Lancaster Archery to see Rob Caulfield and John Wirtz standing there, it was, you know, a plus for me.
Oh yeah, definitely a comforting situation, actually, in some ways.
Yeah, as much as it can be under those circumstances.
Oh, absolutely. You sort of manifested your future, my man. You really did. You know that it's a legendary story in Barebow archery, and people don't know it. And I'm not trying to like fluff you full of sunshine, you know, but it really is. And I didn't even know all those. I knew bits and pieces, but I didn't know all of the story. And you know, it paints a picture of what it requires to put yourself in that situation. You know, you can't experience magnificent things if you're not going to put yourself in magnificent situations. And sometimes that takes a magnificent amount of work, and you did it.
Yeah, well, thank you, Frank. It takes some drive on the part of the archer, and it also certainly is very beneficial to have good coaching. So, you know, Frank, I know that you're helping the Barebow community quite a bit, as well as other divisions, I'm sure, but at Grass Hollow Archery, and, you know, as I mentioned before, you've helped me in the past. You know, when we were shooting together, you mentioned that my timing seemed to be a little bit erratic at one point, and I told you about how I took that into consideration and slowed myself down a little bit and shot a whole lot better on the second half of the tournament than I did on the first half. I think that was at Archery Addictions. And so, you know, people such as yourself helping out make a world of difference. It really does. You know, so I had help getting started from Lancaster Archery from John Wirt and Sean Snyder. And along the way at these invitationals and the Penn Dutch League from Scott Rissinger. And so just, you know, helping with your equipment, helping with your form. If you can shoot with other people in tournaments and get used to shooting on the line, and just staying involved, staying active, it's a big step in the right direction.
Yeah, definitely. And thank you, Rich. It's about taking the information that's available and shortening that journey for barebow archers. Because it's just going to help our sport grow more. You know, if you can put the information out there for people to get better at barebow archery, then barebow archery is going to grow. Mm-hmm. And you know, and that's why the Barebow project started, was to, you know, I immediately fell in love with it, and I was like, man, there's got to be more to this. There's got to be more information. There's got to be somewhere, and there wasn't. That's what I was looking for. There was nowhere to say, like, well, why am I getting stuck below the gold? You know, people don't realize. And then I started seeing videos and people talk about it, like, oh, it feels like I was seeing in compound and Olympic recurve, I can't lift my arm. It feels like there's a weight on it. I'm like, what? There's no weight on it. You should just be able to go put it right there, right? Uh-huh. And then, you know, through education and experience and training and interviewing people like yourself, you know, and Eric Johnson and John Dillinger and Demmer and Grayson, and just the plethora of top shooters. And then you take that information and you just extrapolate it. Is that the right word? I think that's the right word. And just take it and put it all in one knowledge base, and then say, take the best from all of it and then try to learn from it. You know, and in some ways, you know, Maggie's a little bit of, she's had an amazing journey, you know, and it could have easily gone the other direction. Maggie is a manifestation of trial and error in some ways. She was like the petri dish of talking and working with all these other people to develop the drills and the program and the things that help fix the problems. And then people in the barebow community, Maggie would come up against, you know, say a hurdle, and we would address that hurdle. And then that information, like some of my vlogs on the Barebow Project YouTube page, are an exact response to what we did to help get Maggie through a situation, you know, and that you can see in the confidence, like, and, you know, for a 16-year-old kid to shoot with the confidence that she does, it's not really a surprise, because she's had access to the information. You had access to people and information, help with tuning, help with coaching, help with shooting, access to Demmer, you know, Demmer going out of his way to come, you know, 16 lanes over halfway across to shoot, to say, hey, Rich, how's it going? What you doing? You know, you're hitting low on those bad shots. Maybe you need to switch things up. You know, having that access to information is what's going to make barebow better. It's what's going to grow all of barebow. And of course, I've said this before on the podcast, I love our friends across the pond, but I really want to see American barebow go up, you know, and there's no better way to do that than to talk to people like yourself, pull that information, make it available for the masses, and then say, here, people, like, this is what's working. Go do this. And that's what the goal is, right? You know, but tough. It's a tough journey, man. There's days where, man, I got so much going on. I mean, I'm sitting at the firehouse right now. Obviously, that call didn't come in. But there's days where I just want to like throw my hands in and be like, God, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't think people appreciate that, but you know, it is what it is. I made my bed. I'll lay in it.
Yeah, I applaud your efforts because you have a lot going on, and to be able to keep Brass Hollow Archery going the way you are and turn out some good shooters. I mean, Maggie is very impressive. She's very consistent. You know, she's always shooting at least a decent score, if not a really good score. And it's great to see her do so well. And you mentioned, you know, Samantha Ensign. She broke a record at Grass Hollow Archery a couple weeks ago, right? It's just so good to see. And I really appreciate all the help that I've received over the years from John Demmer and from Lancaster Archery and from yourself, Frank. And I also thought it would be nice to congratulate all of those who made the 2022 U.S. Archery team. That's awesome. Just announced.
Yeah, that's pretty cool stuff.
Yeah.
It really is. See some new names up there, and you know, that's a lot of dedication, traveling all those tournaments and stuff like that. You know, and it's exciting to see what happens now as we move forward into this new year and the USATs and some of this new opportunity for Barebow. So that's good stuff too. And then, so I guess, you know, where we go from here, Rich, is we're gonna close this one out, and then we're gonna record again. But this next one's gonna be a little bit of a different approach because we're gonna talk about post Lancaster Archery Classic, and you know, struggling through some of like the shoulder stuff, and you know, maybe just some mindset stuff too. I think so, Rich. I'm gonna play a little future teller here, and I think that you rehashing all of this is going to have a major positive effect on you now moving forward as we go toward the Classic.
Oh, I hope so.
I think it is.
That's all I hope I get.
You're always a good shooter. I'm not, but I think that, you know, we talk about the mindset, and I could hear it and see it in your demeanor as you were going through it, that mindset is still there, and that you haven't been exposed to the environment where you had to draw or pull that mindset out of you in a while. And I think that you got a little bit of a taste of that over the last hour or whatever it's been that we've been recording, because I could see it. Like I could see it and hear it in your voice. So I'm just gonna say, I'm gonna put it out there. You know, I think that you know, minus, you know, any, you know, shoulder issues or stuff, because I know, you know, it's tough at times, and you know, but I don't know if you necessarily have the 5-6 days a week to shoot right now, but you know, or the capacity to do that physically, but still think it doesn't matter. It's still there. That foundation is there, and that foundation doesn't go away. So
yeah, I'm finding out that shooting every day doesn't work for me anymore. Physically speaking, it's just too much on my shoulder. But that next time around, that should be an interesting conversation, because there were some differences before and after the Classic, for sure, that I can talk about.
Yeah, and that's what we want. We want, because there's going to be younger competitors that maybe are still in the beginning, that like Robbie Weisinger, who is now currently the number one listed player shooter for our USAT. He was awarded one of the top 3 spots, you know, but Robbie's a young guy and has only been shooting Barebow for, I'm going to say he's messed around with it for a little over a year, 2 years.
How about that?
You know, so, yeah. You know, and early on, again, Robbie reached out to Demmer, reached out to me. We, you know, there's a lot of communication back and forth, but, you know, he was a collegiate shooter. You know, he's very athletic, you know, so hopefully your story now also moving forward, it helps guys like him, or maybe some other Leo Patterson, another young guy shoots real well from Sweden, and that people can hear that the full disclosure, all of it, so that maybe they can learn from it, these younger generations coming through, and hopefully we help somebody along the way. So all right, well, that's it, sir. Thank you for the awesome
My
discussion.
pleasure, Frank. Thank you.
I can't wait to run into you. I guess maybe I'll see you on the 2nd. Are you coming up to our FIDA again?
I think we have something going on that day, but I'm going to try to make it up if I can. There's a lot going on that weekend with
Okay. All
New
right.
Year's celebration.
Well, I mean, it's going to be a good time. There's all kinds of faces coming to shoot. So like Demer's going to be there. Zernzak's going to be there. Grayson is toying around with the idea of coming. There's going to be some, I'm sure there's going to be some shit talking, but there's going to be some solid shooting going on. So
Yeah.
good environment to be in the middle of.
I'd love to come up.
Yeah, I understand. Anybody else out there that wants to come check it out, it's gonna be a good time. So
A quick short story about Grayson. I shot the Classic in 2019, and he was on the target butt to my left. He wasn't on my target butt. He wasn't scoring with me. He was on the target butt to my left, and he was on the right edge of the target butt on my left, and I was on the left edge of my target butt. And for some reason that day, I was shooting a lot of liners, and that we had to look in close to see what the score was. And just about every time that happened, Grayson would come over from his target butt over to mine and stick his head in there and he would count that as the next higher score. If it was an 8-9 liner, he would say, that's a 9. Or if it was a 9-10 liner, he'd say, that's a 10. He came over every time that happened.
that sounds like Grayson.
Yeah.
Now, if it was me, it would be the opposite. He would it's an 8-9 line, he'd call it a 7.
Yeah.
That's the friendship that we have, whether he cares to admit it or not. We bust on each other a lot, the three of us. But it's all in jest, and it's fun, and it's one of the things that I love about our community. Just the same, you gotta have a thick skin, not in many fashions, not just as a person who happens to be the figurehead of a podcast. You have to have a thick skin when you're shooting and in competition, and you have to have a thick skin around the Barebow crew, because we have a tendency to get a little rowdy, but
Well, it should be.
that's right. All right, well, everyone, thank you for watching and listening. If you're still with us, it was quite the long one. And Rich, it was a pleasure once again. I can't wait to do part 3. And I can't wait to see you again and hang out and shoot. You're an ambassador to Barebow, and it's nice to bring the Barker episodes out, because you're kind of removed from social media, and you're removed from all that stuff, and people need to hear from you, and they need to hear your story. So thank you so much for that.
Thank you, Frank, for what you're doing for all of us as well.
Absolutely, you're very welcome. All right, everyone, that's it. Go do what you're supposed to be doing instead of listening to us. And thank you so much for all of your support as well. We'll see you guys later. Peace out.